Kristen, and you're listening to Podcast and Amplify, a podcast for women entrepreneurs who want to amplify their voice and brand through podcasting and grow a wildly successful business. I'm the executive producer and host of 2 shows and an entrepreneur, and I love helping women grow their visibility, mindset, and business to the next level. Each week, I share tips on how to launch and leverage your podcast, and I'm bringing on the very best business leaders to give you advice on how to build your business empire. Let's amplify your voice and business. Welcome back to Podcast and Amplify. Today, I'm talking with Paty Soares. She's a strategic consultant who helps creative entrepreneurs make quicker and smarter business decisions that lead them to their next level. Her main focus is to help coaches build and deliver a high-quality group coaching program and scale their business from one-to-one to a one-to-many business model. So welcome, Paty. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So let's dive into the question. So what led you to wanting to help people with their courses? And I'm curious about your story.
Well, I moved a lot from different places in my career, honestly. So I actually have a background in graphic design. I went to college for graphic design. I specialized in e-learning, like virtual education. And then I did an MBA in business management. And then career-wise, I worked in marketing, project management, all different areas that you can think of in business. And then online, I became a regular path, I think, for most people, like a VA, then online business management, and then more of a consulting, just to understand. I mean, for me, this transitional lines that I needed to understand what I would fit in. So then I pivot a lot of times as I realize that, okay, that's not where I fit in. Let me go to the next step, right? And it's been, 3 years that I am on this online entrepreneurship world and really helping people with their programs. It's something that I did as an online business manager or integrator. And now I'm just focusing on that because it's one of the things I like the most out of it. And it fits my experience, it fits my background. I mean, I love helping people transform their ideas into something tangible that they can deliver, and they can deliver within a really high quality and high standards, right? So it's not, bringing more of that to the online space and to, small entrepreneurs that they might not have access to all of that information, all of that structure that, if you look at the big corporations or big learning communities that they bring in.
Yeah, I actually love your journey and all the pivots and how you got to where you are. I think that's so common for an entrepreneur, right? Like we're just searching for the thing that fit. And all of these experiences are necessary, right? They all build on each other. I can tell that you have the passion for like helping people create that, course that really impacts other people and also impacts their businesses.
Yes, definitely. Because I see, and a lot of my clients, they get super stuck and they sit on an idea for 6 months, a year. Like they have this great idea. They already validated. They have people interested, but they just don't know what to do next. Like, what do I need to do next to make this happen, right? That's where they get stuck.
And then in comes Paty, swoops in, says, here's the plan.
That's where I jump in like, okay, let's do this. What's the idea? Okay, this is the idea. All right, so next steps. Let's do this. Let's do it together, right? I think that's the most different as well, because they tried, most of those clients or most of people, they try to do on their own. They tried the courses, they tried, all of the different things, but they just get to a point where they're like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like I'm stuck, right? And that's why the collaboration it really helps move the needle forward. I had a client who she was sitting on an offer for 6 months on an idea, right, for 6 months. And we developed it and launched it within 3.
Wow.
So, but because we had that collaboration, because we were able to move forward, right? So,
Yeah, and you're so right about the collaboration. I think that's the one thing about my corporate past that I miss is and found so valuable was the creative collaboration. I mean, there's really nothing like it. Like when you get in the room with someone or a virtual room, and you're building off of each other's ideas and each person's strengths are adding to it. I mean, that's like so much fun.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When someone is thinking about turning their one-on-one knowledge or experience or expertise into an online course or coaching experience, where should they start?
Well, the first thing is really on their mindset. So there is a big shift that needs to happen from a one-on-one to a one-to-many offer, and that really starts internally. I see a lot of people and a lot of my clients struggle because they are so attached to the results that they can offer on a one-on-one basis, and those results are different when you're doing one-to-many. I mean, you're basically handing over control to your clients for their own progress and results. While in a one-on-one, you might hold yourself accountable for that. So I think this is really the major piece. And after that, I would say is really understanding the differences between coaching and teaching. So when you're going from a group offer, whether that's an online course or the coaching experience, you need to become a teacher for that group of people, right? And that requires a slightly different skill set than what you might have at the moment. So you really need to understand the differences between coaching and teaching, and also understand the differences between the learning profiles, because everybody learns differently, right? There are people who have more visual, others more audio. There are people who need more of that background of the educational knowledge, others that might need more of the practical side. So know your audience and understanding their learning profiles is going to help you deliver better on a one-to-many offer, which is totally different than if you were working with that person one-on-one, because you are going to have different people with different learning profiles watching and learning from you at the same time.
So going back to the difference between a coach and a teacher, can you touch on a few of the differences?
So a coach for me is really going to guide you, right? And on a one-on-one scenario, you're going to have that personal touch. You're going to have the opportunity to get to know that person more, so you can actually tailor your coaching to that person's needs, right? While when you become a teacher, when you're teaching for a group, depending on how your offer is structured, you are not going to know everyone, right? So you have to bring more of like the teacher skills, like how am I going to pass on that information to a group, considering that they learn differently? What do I need to have? What content do I need to have? How should I present that content? What are the different ways that I need to put that information out there, so I'm actually being able to support all of the students, all of the, the coaching clients that I have at the moment here, right? So that's kind of the difference that I see.
And then, so you talked about learning profiles for your potential students. How would you go about discovering that? And I'm wondering if, because you might not know what everyone's learning style is, do you promote creating a course or a group program where it's sort of multimedia, like where it can teach to different people in different ways?
Yeah, so I mean, the learning profiles, I don't have them on top of mind right now, but I believe there are 5 in general. So like you can find that information out there. And basically, when you're creating the content for your course, if you're fulfilling the 5 different profiles, then you're already solving that problem. So for example, that there are people that are they learn more with video content. Others, they need to read the whole thing. Other needs to write it, for example, right? So if you're providing all of that experience, so if you have a course or a coaching training that you have the video piece, but you also have a workbook that you're going to have that explanation written, and then you give them an exercise where they need to answer those questions and kind of like help them revise their knowledge or move forward on their path. You are already touching different profiles in that way. So it's literally, you can find just do some research out there. You're going to find the basics profiles that the learning profiles that everyone has. I mean, the different ones, and creating content thinking about all of those profiles. We already improve your delivery. You already improve the client experience that you are providing and the results of everyone.
I love that. And we'll link to a resource in the show notes. That way people can see what those profiles are and have in mind when they're creating their course. Hey, explorers, we'll get back to the show in just a moment, but I wanted to take just a few seconds to invite you to the free workshop that I created. It's called The 3 Secrets to Starting Your Successful Podcast. Now, it's all about helping you to start your dream podcast so that you can share your voice and expand your business. If you want to join, just go to podcastanamplify.com. It's totally free. All right, friend, back to the show. So what are some ways that you help people to map out their curriculum? Because I think that's the sort of tricky thing for a lot of people is, how do I take my knowledge, and especially if it's one-to-one, like how does that translate into a curriculum?
Yeah, so I mean, the curriculum, it's one piece, right, of the whole pie. So really helping them map out, it's what I do is more like a reverse engineer the process. I'm going to look at, okay, what do you actually deliver? What is the transformation that you bring to the table? What's the outcome that you want to offer to those members, on whatever you're creating? And then from the outcome, I'm literally gonna sit with them on a call and say, okay, now let's pretend I am that client and you want me to, you are gonna guide me through the process to achieve that outcome. What are you gonna do? Like, what's the next step? And what's the next step? So literally understanding and role playing in a way with them on how they're gonna deliver that. And from that call, I basically, at the same time that they are talking to me and kind of like explaining their process, I'm breaking down that information into the modules, into the structure of the offer that they're going to be doing, right? And then after that, we're going to be looking at, okay, so what's the individual outcome for each of the lessons? So what do you expect the person to learn on, module 1, lesson 1, for example? Because there is what you're teaching and there is what you want them to learn.
Talk about that a little bit more.
It's like information, and communication in general, that there is a way for you to say it and what you want the person to receive and to perceive. But there's the actual perception and the information that the other person is going to receive, right? So there are two sides there that we need to be conscious about. Like, what are your goals with that particular lesson? But then what's the outcome that you want them to actually have from those goals? And then, of course, looking, okay, is there exercises that we need to provide? Are there resources that we need to bring to the table that's going to help them achieve that outcome, right? Do we need to, create a quiz, a homework? Like, how are we going to also assure that they understood what we wanted to provide on that lesson? So basically, how do we know that the outcome was fulfilled, even though I share the message that I want to share, right? So thinking about all of that, and also bringing, the overall structure of the program itself. Like, what's the best way to deliver this whole thing? If it's a course, it's going to be pre-recorded. Are you going to do live, on the first, if it's the first round, or, how are you going to deliver that? How are you going to communicate with your students or your clients throughout that process? How many touch points do you need to have to be able to have an idea, like, if they are receiving the information and perceiving the content that way that you intended to them, right? So all of that and a bit more.
Yeah, that's a lot that you help people with. And so reverse engineering it makes so much sense. Like, start with, the outcome that you want your students to have, and then break it down into the steps of actually, like, how do you get there? And I'm sure it's really helpful to have someone like you there, because I think a lot of the things that we teach people or that we coach people through, it's hard for us to see the steps, right?
Yes.
Because we're just doing it, right? We're just, oh, that's just what I do. And so to sit down and be thoughtful about it, and then especially to have someone like you who has distance from it, right? And can just listen to, oh, how are you doing that? Oh, let me, break this down. But that sounds like a really effective way to get the curriculum down. And then it sounds like there's other layers of making sure that people are actually getting the information that you're giving, and then all the ways that you can deliver it to people and touch points. So it sounds like kind of a big process, but this helped break it down so that listeners who are thinking about starting a course can think about those things, or they can hire you to help them think through those things. But just gives an idea of what does that look like. So I think that's a really great breakdown. And so then I want to talk about, like, once you have the course, what are the things that people need to have in place for it to be a successful launch? Because I know that's a whole other beast.
Yes, that is indeed a whole other beast. When you're launching a course or a group program, you need to know the transformation that you're offering, right? So from a sales perspective, that's basically what you're going to use on communication and marketing. Most of people teach you to sell the transformation, but in order for you to confidently sell the transformation, you need to know how you are going to deliver on that. So there are two things here that you need to know and to keep in mind before you go out and start planning your launch, right? And then when you move to the actual launch, the first thing is planning. Like, you need to plan in advance. You need to have enough time to be able to look at that piece strategically, to set your goals and your target, and to outsource if you need to outsource, to define what's the best marketing strategy for you at that time, to define your ideal audience, because 101, it's one audience and one buyer profile. One to many, it might be a similar audience, but there is a slight difference there on the buyer profile as well. So maybe the person who buys your one-on-one service is not going to buy your group offer or your course. So you need to look at the differences there, so so you adjust the tone and you adjust the conversation. And all of that happens in that planning phase, right? So you need to prepare, and you need to set the time to plan for all of that to happen. So really, planning, so you have enough time to look at all the different areas that you need to look at before you put something out in the market, and then have a preparation period, which basically it's the time that you're going to be actively working on creating all the assets, everything that you need to create that's going to support your launch. And then you need to have the active launching marketing period, right? Which is usually people do like a 2 weeks. There are people who do 4 weeks. I mean, if you're doing, depending on the strategy that you choose, right? If you're doing a 5-day challenge and then you're doing your sales, you need to consider all of that. So it all goes back to planning, basically. You need to plan to be able to have a successful launch. And also there are a couple of things, like even if you set goals and targets, you need to let go of the outcome, because sometimes you get so stuck looking at that and you don't allow yourself to adapt during the launch and or to do what you feel like you need to do at that time, because you're stuck on a particular number that you set. If you don't see that, you're getting close to it. So a goal and a target, it's good to have, because it's going to help you adjust the strategy, but it's not, set to stone. I mean, it might happen, it might not, right? So you need to be open to the possibilities.
That's such a great thing to remind us of, to not be attached to the outcome. And you were reminding me when I launched my course that was a challenge, to not get stuck on this number that I had set. And I worked with a coach during that time, because I thought, oh, this is going to be a real challenge, because just through the launch process, because I was like, oh, this is bringing up a lot of, stuff. Because It's like, oh, I'm putting this thing out there that I worked on. And so luckily she helped me with that similar idea and a lot of other things, but there's so much to learn during that process of launching.
Exactly.
And you just it pinged in my mind when you said that. I was like, oh yes, that was such a big learning time. And you're so right. Like if you are stuck to this one goal, it's not going to help you pivot or just adjust or learn. And those things absolutely have to happen during your launch. Sorry, people who come up with the plan and think it's all going to go accordingly. That's just not how launches are. And so I think that's just a good thing to throw out there. I also wanted to ask you, are there some tools that you really like to use for creating courses? Or do you have any suggestions or favorite apps or softwares that you like to use?
I use Lucidchart, which is a visual platform where you can basically map out workflows. I mean, there is another one similar, that's Miro. So it's stick notes, but virtually. So you can share with other people, you can collaborate nowadays, right? And literally Excel, just put the information down on an Excel file or on a Google Sheet, whatever that looks like, just so you structure your own information. Because in terms of course platforms itself, when you go to more of the tech side of it, it depends a lot on what are your goals and what you want to deliver, to be able to choose the right tech stack that's going to support that.
Right. Yeah. And there are a few, I think there's Kajabi and Teachable and
Think5, Podia, and then there are the more advanced in a way, which they go inside WordPress, like LearnDash, for example, which you can basically custom build the whole thing. But again, it depends on where you are in your business. What do you want to, deliver at the end of the day, to be able to choose what's the right ones for that time that you are in your business, because all of that can change within time and as your business grow. But it's just, we just need to be conscious and take one step at a time, even when choosing the tech stack, because some people might choose the high tech one and then launching a first time offer, and then the launch flops, and then
they've invested how much money in this really robust tool.
Exactly. And they don't have the ROI for it. So at the end of the day, so those are things from a business perspective that you need to consider as well when you're launching anything.
Right.
But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes, it is. I just wanted to touch on it a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that people know how to find you and where to connect with you. So if you can let us know how to do that.
Of course. So I'm mainly on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is paty.obm. My website is patysoares.com. So feel free to send me a DM, to drop me on my website, and drop me a message there. If you have any questions, just reach out. I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your knowledge around courses and the strategy for getting that going. Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
If you loved today's episode, please subscribe so you don't miss a show. And rating and reviewing this podcast is the best way to help support us. Always remember, your voice and what you have to offer is needed in the world. Until next week, take care.